Emily had always imagined her wedding day as the pinnacle of happiness. Everything was exactly how she dreamed it. Floral arrangements in soft blush tones, golden sunlight bathing the garden, and the love of her life waiting at the altar. But then, without warning, his mother stood up from her seat. Her voice rang through the air like a blade. "That child she's carrying, it's not my son's." The murmurs started instantly. Some whispered, some gasped. All eyes turned toward Emily, then to Daniel. His expression shifted. The certainty in his eyes faded and hesitation took its place. That hesitation, more than the accusation, sliced through Emily like a knife. She stumbled backward, heart racing, tears threatening to fall. And she ran. What she didn't know, what no one did, was that this scandal wasn't about betrayal. It wasn't about infidelity or the baby growing inside her. It was about a truth someone had been burying for decades. A truth that was about to explode. The Hawthorne estate was the kind of place that belonged in magazines. Guests had gathered on the manicured lawns for what was supposed to be the perfect union of Emily Brooks and Daniel Hawthorne. There was admiration in some conversations, envy in others. "Did you see her dress?" someone whispered. "I heard it's custom-made, from Milan." "Daniel proposed on a private beach in Maui," another said, swirling a drink. A graying man near the terrace chuckled, adjusting his cufflinks. "That boy knows how to put on a show, just like his father." But not everyone was there to celebrate. On the edge of the garden, Patricia Hawthorne, Daniel's mother, stood in an emerald gown, regal and composed. Her eyes didn't wander aimlessly like everyone else's. They hunted, analyzed. Her smiles were polite, but her gaze never stopped searching. Inside the estate, Emily stood before a tall mirror, the golden light catching the fine lace of her dress. She looked breathtaking, but she didn't feel it. Claire, her maid of honor and best friend since college, stepped into view behind her. "You look like a dream," she whispered. Emily gave a nervous laugh, her voice tight. "Why does it feel like I'm gonna throw up?" Claire perched on the velvet couch, raising an eyebrow. "Just don't throw up on the dress, that's where I draw the line." Emily rolled her eyes, letting out a shaky breath. "You're so reassuring." Claire smirked, then moved behind her to adjust the already perfect buttons on her gown. "You're nervous, that's normal. It's a huge day, everyone's watching, no pressure." Emily groaned. "Seriously, stop helping." Claire's tone softened. "Look, you love Daniel, that's all that counts." Emily smiled faintly. More than anything. But deep down, something still gnawed at her. Not wedding day jitters. Something else. Something she couldn't name. A gentle knock interrupted the moment. Emily's father, Henry Brooks, stepped inside. His usually stern face melted when he saw her. "Wow," he breathed, eyes misting. "You look just like your mother did." Emily blinked away tears. Claire just said the same thing. Henry stepped forward, fidgeting with his cufflinks. "I should say something wise now, but all I can picture is you, 5 years old, spinning through the house in a tutu and cowboy boots, yelling you'd never get married." Emily chuckled softly. "I meant it too." Claire grinned. "I want pictures of that." Henry's expression sobered as he looked at his daughter. "You sure about this?" Emily hesitated just a second too long, then nodded. "Yeah, I am." He studied her carefully, then extended his arm. "All right, let's go make some memories." Across the estate, Daniel stood in his dressing room, adjusting his tie for the 10th time. His nerves were electric. "If you keep doing that, I'm taking it away," Liam joked from the couch. Daniel exhaled. "I just want to see her." Emily had changed his world. Every moment with her had led to this day. He imagined her walking down the aisle, imagined their future, a family, a home, a life they would build together. "You've got it bad," Liam said with a chuckle. Daniel didn't even argue. A knock on the door turned both of their heads. His father, Charles Hawthorne, walked in, tux crisp, posture commanding. "You ready?" he asked. Daniel nodded. More than ever, but not everyone was beaming with pride. At a far table near the entrance, Patricia sat stiffly, her hands tight around a wine glass she hadn't touched. Her face held the same grace it always did, but her knuckles were white. She watched Daniel, watched Emily's side of the family, watched everything, because she was hiding something. Something so big it could destroy everything. Daniel and wasn't Charles's biological son. Before we continue the story, if you're new here, please consider subscribing to our channel. It really helps us keep making stories like this. She had carried that truth alone for years. A single mistake from decades ago buried under layers of lies. She had convinced everyone, even herself at times, that Daniel belonged to Charles. But now, as she looked at Emily, glowing and pregnant, a fear clawed through her. Because if there was ever a reason for a DNA test, it wouldn't just unravel Emily's world, it would unravel hers. And that was a risk Patricia couldn't take. She wasn't going to lose everything. She would act first, strike fast, and if someone had to be sacrificed to protect the truth, it would be Emily. Patricia didn't waste a moment. Her mind was already calculating, orchestrating. She needed someone who could lie convincingly, someone with nothing to lose and everything to gain, and she knew just the man. Her driver once mentioned a concierge downtown who worked at a discreet luxury hotel, often visited by diplomats and politicians. Patricia made the call. A meeting was arranged. She chose a quiet corner in a high-end restaurant. The man, worn from years of underpaid service, arrived looking nervous. Mid-50s, gray streaks in his hair, eyes sunken from years of saying yes ma'am to people with money. "You worked at the Regency Grand?" she asked smoothly. He nodded. 12 years. That's a long time. You must have seen a lot. He hesitated. If this is about... She slid an envelope across the table. Thick, heavy, tempting. His eyes flicked down, then back to hers. "I need you to say you saw a young woman check in with a man 2 weeks ago," she said. She looked nervous. "They seemed intimate," he squirmed. "I don't know if I can say something that didn't happen." Patricia's expression didn't change. She tapped the envelope once, then slowly pulled out a second, even thicker one. 5,000 now. 5 after the wedding. All you need to do is say she was there. Nothing dramatic. Just enough to raise a question. The man looked around, then leaned forward. "What if someone checks footage, or asks for proof?" Patricia let out a soft laugh. "Footage is erased every 72 hours, and people can book under different names." She slid a reservation across the table. Emily Brooks' executive suite printed from the hotel system. His eyes widened. "Where did you—" "That doesn't matter," she interrupted, voice like silk. "What matters is you'll be at the wedding. You'll wait for my signal, then you'll tell your little story. Make it believable. If you hesitate..." She tapped the second envelope. "This disappears." His hand moved. Shaking, he took the envelope. "Good," Patricia said, standing smoothly. "Enjoy your evening, Mr. Callahan. I'll see you Sunday." She left without another word. Back home, she stared into the dark ceiling of her bedroom. It had been years since her one reckless mistake. Charles had grown distant, consumed by his business, and his assistant. Everyone knew. No one said it. She had stayed. For the money, the image. Then she met Nathan, a charming architect, unlike anyone in their social circle. He had a wit and warmth that Charles never did. One glass of wine turned into a second. One laugh too many. And then they were outside, the city glowing behind them, his hands tangled in her hair. One night became many, until she realized she was pregnant. Panic set in. The timeline was close enough. Barely. She seduced Charles, ensuring the dates blurred. When she told him, he was thrilled. She buried the affair, cut Nathan off cold. "It was nothing," she told him. "I don't love you." He had stared at her like she'd torn his heart out, and maybe she had, but it kept her life intact. Daniel was born. Everyone believed he was Charles's son, even Daniel. But now Emily's pregnancy had threatened everything. If the baby wasn't Daniel's, questions would follow. DNA tests. And those tests would reveal more than one secret. So Patricia made a choice. Ruin Emily, and the attention would stay off Daniel. Off her. It was the only way. The sun filtered through the trees as guests began to settle into their seats. Emily appeared at the entrance, her dress flowing behind her like a dream. Gasps rippled across the crowd. Daniel's breath caught. He'd never seen anything so beautiful. Liam leaned in and whispered, "If you don't blink, you're gonna faint." Daniel didn't hear him. Emily's father walked her down the aisle, his hand tight around hers. "You ready?" he whispered. She nodded, heart pounding. Then he placed her hand into Daniel's. The ceremony began. The officiant's voice rang clear. "If anyone has reason these two should not be joined, speak now or forever hold your peace." Silence, then a rustle. Patricia rose. Emily's grip on Daniel's hand tightened. His heartbeat roared in his ears. "Daniel," Patricia began, her tone trembling with practiced sorrow. "I love you, and I wanted to welcome Emily into our family, but she's hiding something." The crowd stirred. "She's pregnant," Patricia continued. "But it's not your child," Emily gasped. "That's a lie." Her voice shook. "Ask her," Patricia pressed. "Ask her why she never told you. Ask her why she's been hiding it." From the back, a man stepped forward. "Mr. Callahan. 2 weeks ago, I saw Emily check into the Regency Grand Hotel with another man." Gasps. Emily turned pale. "I've never even been there." Callahan reached into his pocket and held up a receipt. "I didn't want to say anything, but I couldn't stay silent." Daniel took the paper. His hands trembled. "Emily Brooks, executive suite." Emily shook her head, eyes wide with panic. "That's not mine." Patricia covered her mouth, pretending to stifle tears. "I trusted you." "You did this," Emily hissed at her. "Why would I do that to my own son?" Patricia said softly. Daniel looked at Emily, truly looked at her, and for the first time he doubted. "You don't believe this, do you?" Emily pleaded. He hesitated. And Emily's world shattered. She ran. Her bouquet fell to the ground with a dull thud. Gasps followed her out as she fled the ceremony, gown trailing behind her like a broken dream. She didn't stop until she was alone, and Daniel just stood there, frozen, until a fist hit him square in the jaw. "Spineless bastard," Henry Brooks growled, rage in his voice. "You let her walk out. You let this happen." Daniel barely processed the blow. "Mr. Brooks, you should have defended her," Henry hissed. "You should have stood by her when it counted." Then he walked away, and Daniel was left standing in the ruins. Patricia sat quietly in the corner, swirling her champagne, smiling. The house was quiet now. The celebration had crumbled into whispers and uneasy glances. Upstairs, Emily sat on the edge of a bed, still in her wedding dress. Her fingers gripped a small white box with trembling hands. The test was positive. 2 faint lines. Her breath caught. Claire stepped closer, more careful than usual. "You okay?" Emily looked at her in the mirror, her voice hollow. "Patricia knew before I did." Claire said nothing, but her nod was slow. "Yeah, she did." The clock read 37 a.m. Sleep was impossible. The house had long since emptied, but the pain hung in the air like smoke. Emily stood in the kitchen, phone pressed to her ear. It rang 4 times. Then, "Someone better be dead," Liam's voice grumbled. "Shut up and listen," Emily said sharply. He paused. "That bad?" "She's pregnant," Emily said. Silence. She expected a quip, a joke, something to make her breathe again. Instead, Liam's voice shifted, low, focused. "And Patricia knew before the test?" Claire's stomach twisted. "Yes." Another pause. Then, "That means she was already watching her before the wedding. This whole thing was planned." Claire didn't answer. She didn't have to. The next morning, Claire found the proof. She stormed into a cafe where Liam was waiting, dropped a folded receipt onto the table and sat down hard. Liam picked it up, scanning quickly. His jaw clenched. "It's from a boutique across town," Claire said. "Same date and time, Patricia. Claims Emily was at the hotel." "She didn't just set Emily up," Liam muttered. She scripted every second. Claire nodded. And now we're going to tear it down. Liam stood suddenly, grabbing his coat. What are you doing? Finding the hotel guy. Now. I'm not waiting. Tracking down someone like... Callahan wasn't easy. He was a man who knew how to disappear, but Liam didn't give up easily. By late afternoon, he had a name. Jordan Callahan, former concierge. Known to accept cash for silence. Liam found him in a dingy motel 2 towns over, hunched at a corner table in a diner that smelled like burnt coffee in desperation. Jordan flinched when Liam slid into the seat across from him. You look nervous, Liam said, voice flat. Jordan laughed weakly. Should I be? That depends. Jordan's hands fidgeted. Look, man, I didn't mean for... Cut it, Liam snapped. We have proof you lied. Now you're going to come clean. Jordan's face paled. I didn't have a choice. You had a choice, Liam said coldly. You just picked the envelope. Liam pulled out his phone and dialed. Daniel answered, his voice clipped. What? Meet me, Royal Diner. You need to hear this yourself. There was a pause. Then, this about my mother? Yes. I'm on my way. 15 minutes. Later, Daniel walked in looking like he hadn't slept in days. He didn't greet Liam. He didn't look at Jordan. Talk, he said. Jordan swallowed hard. I made the whole thing up. Daniel didn't blink. I never saw her. She wasn't at the hotel. I was paid to lie. Liam leaned back, watching Daniel carefully. Daniel's voice was ice. Who paid you? Jordan hesitated. Daniel's jaw clenched. Who? Jordan whispered. Your mother. The diner was silent. Daniel sat back, staring through Jordan like he wasn't even real. I'm sorry, Jordan offered. Daniel stood. I don't care. He turned to Liam. We're done here. Liam didn't argue. He watched Daniel leave before turning to Jordan. Pray I don't see you again. That night, the Carter house was still. Daniel lay awake, staring at the ceiling. He didn't go to his mother right away. He waited, he watched, and he noticed things. Patricia was distracted. Her posture faltered. Her sharpness dulled. She was drinking more, snapping at staff, avoiding eye contact. Most of all, she stopped, pretending. One night, just past midnight, Daniel crept downstairs. Something told him tonight was different. He saw the glow under the study door and moved closer. Inside, Patricia sat at her desk, whiskey in one hand, a stack of papers in the other. She wasn't reading. She was whispering to herself. Daniel strained to hear. It was for him. No one will ever know it was the only way. Then she moved. Suddenly, like the thought had just struck her. She gathered the letters quickly, left the study, and slipped into the older wing of the house. That part hadn't been used in years. She stopped at a door, looked around, took out a key from her robe, unlocked it. When she came back out, her hands were empty. Daniel waited until she returned to bed. Then he went. He picked the lock easily. It wasn't made to stop someone like him. The room smelled like dust and secrets. A desk lamp glowed weakly in the corner. On the desk, a box, her handwriting on the lid. Inside, letters, dozens of them. All from the same man, Nathan Hale. Daniel's eyes scanned the first page. I know you'll never let me see him, but he is my son. Another. You can erase me, but you can't erase blood. Another, and another. Daniel's hand shook. At the bottom of the box, official paperwork. A DNA report, the probability of paternity. 0%. His knees nearly buckled. He wasn't Charles's son. Everything he had ever believed, every moment of pressure, every sacrifice he made to carry the Carter name, was built on a lie. He stared at the paper. Heart pounding, world spinning. She had stolen his identity. She had stolen his life, and she thought she could still control him. No. No more. He folded the paper, pocketed it, and walked to her room. Didn't knock, didn't wait. Daniel burst into the room, the door slamming against the wall. Patricia looked up from her chair near the fireplace, her silk robe draped over her shoulders, a half-empty glass of whiskey resting in her hand. For a second, she looked confused. Then her eyes found his and something shifted in her expression. Not surprise, not anger, fear. He didn't say a word at first. He stormed forward and slammed the stack of letters onto her desk with enough force to make the crystal lamp tremble. The silence that followed was deafening. Patricia stared at the papers, her face unreadable, but her hands trembled ever so slightly. "Tell me the truth. Right now," Daniel said, his voice low but lethal. Patricia blinked once slowly. "Daniel, what are you?" He cut her off, his voice rising like a wave. "Nathan Hale," he snapped. "Don't pretend you don't know the name." Her breath hitched. It was small, but it was there, a flicker of panic she couldn't hide. That was all Daniel needed. He took a step closer. "You lied to me. My whole life. You let me believe I was Charles's son. You made me wear that name like a badge. You made me fight to uphold a legacy that was never mine." She tried to steady herself, placing the glass down gently as if she still had control. "I did what I had to do," she said, her voice softer, almost motherly. "You have no idea what that time was like." Daniel let out a bitter laugh. Don't try to spin this into some sacrifice. You did it for you. You did it to keep your name and your lifestyle." She stood now, trying to reach for him the way she used to when he was a child. But he recoiled, stepping back like her touch burned. "Don't touch me," he said, voice shaking. "You don't get to pretend to care now." Her hands dropped to her sides, and for a second she looked older than he had ever seen her. Her next words came in a whisper, cracked and raw. "I did it for you, Daniel. You were better off without him." "No," he shot back. "You were better off. You didn't want to be embarrassed. You didn't want to lose your status. So you erased a man and lied to your own son for 3 decades. Just then, another voice broke the tension like glass shattering. "What the hell is going on?" Daniel turned slowly. Charles stood in the doorway, in his robe, hair mussed from sleep, eyes sharp as they landed on the scene before him. Patricia went still, her lips parting slightly, but no words came out. Daniel didn't wait. He reached for the DNA test, thrusting it into Charles's hands. "Read it." Charles frowned but unfolded the paper. His eyes scanned the lines and then his jaw tightened. "Is this some kind of joke?" "It's real," Daniel said quietly. "I'm not your son." For a moment, Charles didn't move. Then he looked at Patricia. "Tell me this is a mistake." She didn't speak. "Tell me," he demanded. Her voice was brittle. "Fine," she hissed. "Yes. But what does it matter? You were never really a father to him anyway." The room turned to ice, and Charles didn't explode. He just looked at her, truly looked. Then he turned to Daniel, his voice calm but cold. "This doesn't have to change everything. You can still be a Carter. You can bury this." Daniel stared at him in disbelief. "Bury it after everything? You want me to live another lie?" Charles stepped forward, voice firm. "Think about this. If you walk away now, you walk away from everything, the name, the money, the legacy." Daniel's expression didn't change. "Good. I never wanted..." From behind, Patricia's voice broke in again, desperate this time. "You wouldn't do that to me," she whispered. Daniel turned to her, and for the first time, he didn't see his mother. He saw a woman who had manipulated his life from the very beginning. "You're not my mother," he said. "You never were." Then he turned and walked out. Daniel Hawthorne was gone, and the truth was finally free. The storm came down hard that night, thick sheets of rain turning the roads into rivers and the sky into thunder. Daniel didn't feel any of it. His clothes were soaked, the wind cut into his skin, but he kept walking, one step after another until the Whitmore estate rose in front of him like a monument he didn't deserve to approach. He climbed the stairs, every footfall heavier than the last. When he knocked, he had no idea what would happen. Maybe the door wouldn't open. Maybe Thomas would throw him back into the storm. Part of him thought that would be fair. When the door swung open, Thomas Whitmore stood tall, arms crossed, expression unreadable. The moment their eyes met, Daniel knew exactly where he stood. "You lost the right to see her," Thomas said coldly. Daniel didn't move. Rain dripped from his brow, soaking the carpet under his feet. His voice was quiet but steady. "I gave up everything to be here." "That's your problem," Thomas snapped. "You humiliated her. You stood there while a lie tore her apart. You let her run from her own wedding." Daniel didn't argue. He couldn't, because Thomas was right. He had frozen. He had let doubt win. Then a softer voice cut through the tension. "Let him talk." Emily stood just behind her father, arms crossed, face calm, but her eyes, they still held that storm. Thomas turned to her. "You don't have to listen to him." "I want to," she replied. Her gaze returned to Daniel. "You really walked away from it all?" Daniel nodded. "Everything." She didn't move. Her eyes searched his like she was looking for cracks. "Why?" His answer came without hesitation. "Because none of it meant anything if I couldn't face you again." For a moment, neither of them said anything. Then Emily reached into her sweater pocket and pulled out a white envelope. Her fingers held it tightly between them. "I took a test," she said. Daniel's stomach twisted. "It proves the baby's yours." He reached out, but she didn't. "Hand it to him." She just held it up, eyes locked on his. "I didn't do it for you, or him. I did it for me. Because I had to know if I could trust you again." The words hit harder than any accusation. They were heavier because they were true. "Emily," he began, but she shook her head. She didn't let him finish. Instead, she stepped to the side. Just enough for him to enter. It wasn't forgiveness, but it was a beginning. Months later, the world had gone quiet again. Morning sunlight spilled across the white hospital room. The air was still, peaceful, the kind of peace that only followed chaos. Emily sat in the bed, a soft smile on her lips as she cradled the tiny bundle in her arms. Their baby, small, warm, and breathing in a rhythm that made the world disappear. Daniel sat beside her, barely blinking as he watched the baby's face. Like if he looked away, the moment might vanish. Emily watched him silently, her heart both full and fragile. She studied the way his hands trembled when he brushed a finger across the baby's cheek. She had never seen him like this, so quiet, so open. Then she spoke, her voice soft. "The first man in my child's life who will never doubt him." Daniel inhaled sharply, meeting her gaze. His voice cracked, low and honest. "I never will." And this time, he meant every word. If you enjoyed this story, please subscribe to our channel and let us know your favorite moment in the comments.